Morning folks, Johan Bruto at Chatran Mounted Combat and BushCraft. Welcome, and I hope you enjoy this program. Today we're going to continue discussing the trees and the plant life that we found in South Africa. We'll be looking at a couple of the trees here in this riverine forest where we are now. Some of the small flowers also starting to come out. And I'll show you some of the seeds and what we can use the trees for. Stay with me. One of the first traces of color that we see in the veld is this red paintbrush, or as it is known in Afrikaans, a rooikwas. Scientific name Scadoxus puniceus. This is part of the Amaryllis family, and it is a poisonous plant, but you can use it to treat coughs, and we can also make a decoction of it that we can use as an antiseptic on sores and for open wounds. Burek is also busy investigating what's going on here in the bush. We've had a nice ride. 10.5 km so far. Mulberry standing here next to the road. We'll be getting a quick munch. Berries for me and leaves for Burek. That sound that we just heard belongs to the black-collared barbet, small little bird. In Afrikaans we know it as a rooikop houtkapper. Eats fruits, berries and some insects. This is some nice riverine bush next to the Pinaars River. Just north of Pretoria in South Africa. This big tree that is standing here in front of us, this big shady beautiful tree, it's called the river bush willow. Scientific name is Combretum erythrophyllum. See, it grows into a nice big tree. Yellowish greyish bark, very fine. The wood of this tree is a soft pale brownish wood, also very good to make spoons and ladles and that sort of thing from, good for carving. Seeds are poisonous, but giraffe and elephant usually feed on these trees because they can feed high up and they tear the branches down and they eat the leaves. Traditionally the pods can be used to deworm dogs and cats. The leaves of the Combretum erythrophyllum, in Afrikaans is called a riviervaderlandswilg. Soft leaf with almost like a velvety, hairy touch to it. And you can see here it's just starting to make its first flowers. When we discussed the terminalia or the valboom that we found a couple of days ago in the Sandveld area, I mentioned that the seeds of the terminalia has only 2 veins. Here you can see the seeds of the Combretum very distinctly has got 4 veins on them, and this also helps with the distribution of the seeds. Lots of leaves get dropped from these trees. You can hear as I'm walking here underneath this tree, there's leaves crunching beneath my boots. So in this riverine forest, especially winter months now when there's a lot of dry leaves lying on the ground, always a very difficult place to track something, to hunt something, because of the amount of noise that the leaves under you make. There's something else also moving in these bushes. This is the droppings of the black-backed jackal, small carnivore that we find here in South Africa. Very adept at hunting birds, reptiles and small prey animals. An ideal place for them to hide in. This tall, slender tree here in front of us is known as the white stinkwood. Scientific name Celtis africana. In Afrikaans we call it a wit stinkhout. Indigenous species. You can see the bark very similar to the combretum that we just looked at, although there is no flaking on this bark, as you can see. And very typical is that you always find these lichen spots growing on the white stinkwood. Also a soft white wood. The tree is very often planted in gardens, on street corners and that sort of thing. Very nice big shady tree when it grows out. The leaves of the white stinkwood is also very lightly covered with very small light hairs. We get an exotic species of this as well. The exotic species can be distinguished from this one because it doesn't have those hairs on the leaf. The white stinkwood is a tree that spreads very easily from seed. Here you can see a bunch of small ones coming up. This one here, there's another one, there's another one, there's another one here. So it's a tree that spreads very easily, it grows very easily from its seed. There's a little seed starting to form on the stinkwood. There you can see another one. Very small seeds. If you compare it with the size of my finger, you can see not a big seed. The birds love them, and that's one of the ways that they spread. Very easily, very quickly and very far. There's a little tree standing here. It's one of our smaller trees. It's called the taibos. Scientific name Rus perioides, also known as a firethorn in English. You can see the clusters of the leaves. The fruit is edible, slightly bitter but edible. Birds love it. We also use this tree to make concoctions from the root. That helps for stomach ailments, helps for stomach ulcers, helps for sore tooth. See the bark of the taibos. Very finely and densely textured. not a lot of loose bark on it. You compare this to a white stinkwood standing right behind it, you can clearly see the differences in the bark of these two trees. The white stinkwood also a very smooth bark. My ride is patiently waiting for me to join him again so that he can get back to the lucerne at home. He'll be happy to know we'll be going. This is the manure of the common little grey duiker that we find here. Very small, fine pellets. One of the other small species that we find here called the steenbok usually buries its feces. That's why, or how we know that these small droppings are actually from a duiker and not from a steenbok. This big tree that we're coming up on here is called the willow crowberry, or in Afrikaans we know it as a karia. Very hardy tree, keeps its leaves right through the winter. Very drought resistant, very cold resistant. You can see here the difference between the barks of our different trees. This one very deeply but finely fissured, and here you can actually see some moss growing here on the shady side of the tree. The leaves, small fine leaves, and here you can see there's actually some red spiders that made their webs on the leaf there. We can eat the fruit of this tree. The birds love the fruit as well. The bark we can peel down and crush it and use it to tan hides. It's got a light brown hardwood, very tough, works very nicely for furniture and that sort of thing. The crowberry or the karia carries its seeds in these little clusters, also very small seed, but you can see bunches of them all over, and this gets eaten by the birds and the monkeys, and it gets distributed that way. That's a nice big white stinkwood standing here on the edge of the clearing. Here you get an idea of just how big these trees can actually become. This one is still not fully grown. Beautiful bark. Actually a very nicely shaped tree. And very nice and shady.